Welcome to Heatmiserable Podcast, episode number 3. I wasn't sure how many of these a week I was going to do or if I was going to do them once a day, but yesterday, the NFL game between Minnesota and Pittsburgh prompted me to talk about something that I've been saying for years, and I don't usually admit that sometimes when I say stuff, it's coming true or it's right. This is about dead nuts on. So I had said a few years ago, and this is the truth. I mean, Roger Goodell has admitted, the commissioner of the NFL, that he is trying to create a league where everybody's 8-8, and it is becoming closer and closer and closer. Of course, now you're either 9-8 or 8-9 because of the extra game, because we've got to play more mediocre football games. But it is becoming so close to that it's amazing. And while we can look at this on the positive side of things and say this is great because it allows pretty much everybody. I mean, the Jaguars, at least I think, are still not eliminated from the playoffs. Detroit is now. I know Detroit needs pretty much every scenario to take place, including buses to break down to get to the games. But I think with their win last week, I don't think they're eliminated either, which is amazing. But we're so close. We're so close to this. It's unreal. I mean, so the positive side of it is that you can say, well, it's great because so many teams have a chance to make the playoffs. The problem I have with this is that why are we accepting of mediocrity in the NFL, yet we're not accepting of this anywhere else? Anywhere else, nowhere else do we say we want a 500 effort. Somebody mowing your lawn, making your pizza, slicing your deli meat, whatever it is, we do not accept mediocrity, an 8-8 record, 500 record, anywhere else except for the NFL. We don't accept it in college. You can't even close. We don't accept it. I mean, hockey, everybody makes the playoffs, but that's a different story. So we're accepting of this mediocrity, yet we're saying, well, it's a good thing. So we're going to expand the playoffs so more teams are going to make it. So the game last night, and there's so many things about the Vikings that are wrong. So many things that are wrong. Yet, as pathetic a team as they are, and how bad they are, really. And I've said this for years. The race to 8-8 for them with Kirk Cousins now, because they've got the perfect quarterback for that. They have an 8-8 quarterback, a 7-9 guy. The race to 8-8 has begun. So they win last night. Now, as bad as they are 6-7, including a loss to Detroit last week, where they had a lead. They're on the bubble. They're more than a game out because San Francisco is ahead of them right now. But they're in the playoff. They're on the bubble. They're on the bubble. So the NFC is complete garbage because two teams in the playoffs right now are 6-6. At least in the AFC, everybody's got a winning record. In fact, it's much better. It's really way better, including the Colts, who are actually have a better than 500 record, and they're not in the playoffs right now. I mean, it's really good. It's really good. So here's what I mean by accepting mediocrity. We go to a brunch or dinner lunch last week at a restaurant, and the service is horrible because nobody wants to work. So you've got limited staff. I mean, we've gone to this particular chain before at other places, and they limit the amount of people that come in to the building because there's not enough cooks, there's not enough waitresses, there's not enough waiters, there's not enough anything. So we get the food's fine, but the service is horrible. I mean, unacceptable. And you say to yourself, and this is what we talked about at the table, that at least people are working. They have people that are running food. They have people that probably are making the food. They have people working at the bar. But the point I get that starts with this is that at the end of the sitting, my stepdaughter is like, well, we got to tip her 20%. And my wife is like, well, we have to stop accepting okay jobs and being like, well, the norm is 20% a tip in this case, and the job did not warrant probably 5. But it's accepted. And this is the society we've kind of been in, where we accept or we expect to be rewarded for mediocrity, or we expect to be rewarded for sub 500 effort. So this is what brings me to the NFL. Why do we accept mediocrity in the NFL? And the part of it is that, well, so here's how the NFL works. For people that don't know this is how it works. The season starts, you're 500. You're not 0-0. You're 8-9 or 9-8 now. And you have to figure out how to be better than that or how to screw it up. Now, I've said this before about NFL teams. It is very hard right now under the current system. And seriously, it is. Under the current format, it is extremely difficult to not make the playoffs. It is almost impossible. Now, some teams don't make it, but it is almost impossible not to make it. So you have to have some variables. I think it's harder to miss the playoffs now than it is to make it. It's harder to miss the playoffs. So if you have game changers on your team, starts with that. So here's why we're acceptable of mediocrity. Because number one, the entire lower third. So if you broke up generations into, so I'm in my mid 50s. So it's easy for me. I'm in the middle of my life. So I have people that are younger than me and I have people that are older than me. And there's my age. I'll even include the 40s in that. So if you broke it up into thirds where you had the younger generation, the kids in the 20s and the 30s, and then you had the 40, 50s, and then you had older. So my parents and other people's parents. So they grew up in an era where the game was extremely important. Like it was just, just basically starting. We had guys that just loved playing the game, and it was about the team. It was about winning championships. Then you had my era, the middle era, and we still had that. We grew up with championship teams. We grew up with great players, but we grew up with a team-first philosophy. And now we're in this era with the younger generation where it's about stats. And the players play this way. The players care about their Madden rating. Last night, Chase Claypool pulled off one of the biggest boneheaded moves for the Steelers by celebrating a first down in a 2-minute drill that basically cost his team the game. Because it's about me. It's not about my guys. It's about me. I made my catch. I'm going to celebrate a ridiculous 12-yard completion or whatever it was. And then I'm going to basically cost my team a victory because it's about me. The league, the NFL, the NBA... The NFL is becoming more about me. It's why guys can't play every week. It's why Jalen Hurts misses a start last week for the Eagles and is on the sideline smiling while his backup is kicking ass. Because it's not about the team. It's about me. I'm still making my money. I'm still making my Madden rating. I'm still making my deals. This is why Dalvin Cook can't play every week. Now, listen, I'm not challenging guys' toughness. I'm just saying that in this era of stats and fantasy and betting, it's about the guys. It's not about the team anymore. It's not about winning championships. That breed is gone. You have a few that still are left. It's about me. It's about me getting my money. It's about me getting my Madden rating higher so I can make different commercials. And if you look at certain players, they're bringing teams into the playoffs at that level, but they're not winning championships. The guys that are winning championships are the Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, it's been a while, Aaron Rodgers, guys like that. Those are the guys that are going to win titles. So why are we acceptable of mediocrity? Because we bet games and it's difficult. It's impossible, I think, to make any money, even if you bet a few dollars on NFL games, because it's a flip of the coin. It's luck. You're getting lucky. And if you're up, get out. It's easier to bet probably anything else. We're acceptable of it because we look at the positive side. The season's a complete waste of time. And we get to the playoffs, and it's basically a 1-month season. The regular season, we look at all these games and how great this Sunday is. Now, when you look at it on the surface, you can look and say, wow, you're right. Isn't this awesome? And I like redzone on Sundays because it jumps around and I don't have to watch one bad game after another. I can watch all of them put together and all of them thrown together. It's like if you made something for dinner that tastes like but if you mixed it together with something that maybe tastes a little bit better, ultimately it's the color brown. It all comes together. It all looks like but it doesn't taste that bad. That's what the NFL is, and that's what redzone is. Redzone is a combination of ingredients. Some of them are awful. Some of them are paprika and red hot crushed peppers and things that taste awful. And others are really sweet stuff. Icing, cake icing, anything that tastes good. Cheese. You put it all together, you get brown. The NFL is brown. The NFL redzone is brown, but it tastes pretty good because you're going to have good stuff here and there, and you can focus on eating around the edges. You can focus on eating the good stuff when the season gets to the end, because that's what they do. So you don't have to watch an entire game. So the games are great on Sundays if you can watch Red Zone, because you can pick out the olives. You can eat the good stuff. So while that's a positive, I don't understand why we don't look at this and say we're going in a direction where it's not getting better. The draft is designed for mediocrity. The schedule rewards the crappy teams, and the players play for a certain amount of time. They get their money. If you have a good player and you can keep him, I mean, you think about these guys. You talk about Cal Ripken's streak in baseball never being broken. I don't know if you're going to have a quarterback ever play for as long as he did for one team once Tom Brady left. I mean, and Roethlisberger leaves. These guys can't. It's amazing. So you have no consistency. You have no good teams. And it's designed that way. You have no consistently good teams. We thought the Chiefs were going to be that team. So when you look at the league and you look at how bad some of these organizations are, understand that the NFL, when we think that these are professionals and they know what they're doing, they're not much farther off than running a fast food or a restaurant chain that goes downhill. They're really not. There is some bad organizations out there. Just because a guy owns a football team or is a general manager of a football team or coaches it doesn't mean he knows what he's talking about. He's as full of shit as any of us. And there's teams out there that are traditionally not going to succeed. I tell you this, I think as long as the Joneses run the Cowboys, they're not going to win. You don't have great people. You have your family around you, and that's great. You gave everybody their jobs, but you don't have hardworking guys in that facility. And look at all the teams. Look at the teams that are traditionally always bad. The Browns are back to the Browns. The Vikings are always going to be bad. The Jaguars are always going to be bad. Detroit's always going to be bad. I mean, Buffalo is shaking off a rough franchise. There's teams that will never win. Never. Unless you somehow change, and you get somebody new in there. Some new owner, some new whatever. Certain ones are never going to win. There's reasons why the Yankees were always so great when George Steinbrenner ran it. Look at family does it now. There's no motivation. Downhill. The Rooneys with the Steelers, the way that the Packers fortunately are somewhat consistent, but there's not a lot of. I mean, look at the Bartolo with the Niners. They're not the same anymore. Those teams that were great, the Dallas Cowboys with Jimmy Johnson, were great because they stole half a team from the Vikings, but there's no consistency. Everybody's mediocre, and that's what we want. We want this mediocrity. We want this. So why are teams not? So you start at 8-8 or 8-9, 9-8, and you need to figure out a way to avoid being worse. So it starts with, in my opinion, it starts with the quarterback. It doesn't start with the coach. It starts with the quarterback. So the teams that have quarterbacks good enough to put you at a higher level. Okay. So here's the teams that are currently leading. And by the way, Viking fans, if there's another time, I'll explain to you why it is, in my opinion, useless for anybody currently under the current regime. If you're a Vikings fan, stop. Here, I'm going to tell it now. Stop. Here's why. Patriots are the number one seed in the AFC. Minnesota in the draft had Mac Jones basically drive his car to their facility, walk inside and open the door and say, "Here I am. I'm available." And they said, "Nope, we're sorry. We don't want a guy who played for the greatest college football coach ever, was votes away from winning the Heisman, was the most efficient college quarterback that Alabama has ever seen. We don't want you. We're going to draft Kellen Mond, who is cheaper, 2 rounds later." So if they're not willing to commit, and I know why they didn't sign him, they didn't want to pay the money. So if you're not, as an organization, committed to put the best players on the field, to commit fully 100% to no matter what it takes to win, why should I, as a fan, watch or even think that there's a chance? Because you passed on a guy that was sitting next to you. He basically was sitting next to them. No. Shockingly, by the way, and I said it that night, this guy will be a legend, number 1 seed. So the quarterbacks in the playoffs in the AFC, we have Mahomes at 4, we have Mac Jones at 1, we have Justin Herbert at 5, we have Joe Burrow at 6, and we have Josh Allen at 7. Mixed in there is fantasy nerd Lamar Jackson, and then shockingly Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill is a system guy, but he can win. I'm fine. Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott. Prescott's more of a numbers guy. Cousins is not his fault, but he's not an 11 or 12 win quarterback. He's not a game changer. There's something about he's not a game changer statistically. And the reason why they're mediocre is not because of him. It's not because of him. But he's not a game manager. He's not going to be a guy like Tannehill, because I could care less about stats. I want to see a guy win games. He also can't play defense, so that's another problem. NFC, much better conference. Kyler Murray, who is the NFC version of Lamar Jackson. Those two guys will not play or win a Super Bowl, in my opinion. They're fantasy numbers. They're fantasy numbers, and they become predictable and easy to beat in a one game, really important game. That's what I think. Aaron Rodgers, classic, shocker, the Packers, and that's because they got upset by the Vikings. Packers, Tom Brady's number 3, Prescott's 4. That'll change. That division is god awful bad. Matt Stafford, stunningly, Matt Stafford is playing for an organization that is somewhat committed to winning, and guess what? He's an 8-win quarterback already. Plays for the Lions, horrific. Detroit, and now he's an 8-win team, and they're a wild card team. Washington and San Francisco, doesn't matter. And the rest of the conference doesn't matter. Doesn't matter with Cousins, doesn't matter with Hurts or Minshew. I don't even know who's playing quarterback for Carolina. It's not Teddy Bridgewater, right? I don't even know. It doesn't matter. The rest of it, Matt Ryan's way down there, doesn't matter. And doesn't matter in the I think the Colts have a chance, but anyhow, my point is these are the quarterbacks. So it starts with the quarterback position. These guys are good. These guys can win games for you. I mean, if you don't think that Brady and Rodgers, I said this too, why in the world would I lose any sleep or put any kind of effort into watching teams in the NFC when Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady play in that conference? If those two teams don't make it to play each other, I'll be surprised. Stunned. Surprised. I don't think Arizona. No, don't think it. So the quarterback position is where it starts. Then your game changer is you can have a great coach. You can have a legendary coach, but there's not many of them. Because basically coaching, everybody's working hard. Everybody's working hard. It's the guys that have to be the nut jobs like Belichick to bring that team to another level, and there's not many of them. There's not many of them at all. There's the guys that look good. Kingsbury, McVay, do it for a year, but not consistently. Not every year. You make the playoffs one year, make the Super Bowl one year, and you don't make the playoffs the next year. At the coaching level, everybody is working hard. You need to work even harder. Again, nut job level hard. That's why Belichick, shockingly, is back in there again. Everybody loves the receivers. Everybody loves that. I don't think that makes a difference. I don't think that you're going to win a championship based on receivers. So it comes down to, how do you screw up? How do you screw up? You can have a cancer on your roster. You can have a bad coach on your staff. You can have mediocrity. Everybody's mediocre. Everybody's 8-8. Just follow this the rest of the season. Everybody starts at 8-8, 9-8, 8-9, and then the teams that are really making an effort to not win. And the other thing too is, some of them don't have to win. Some of them don't have to win to be successful. Dallas does not have to be in a Super Bowl or win one to be successful. That stadium sells itself. You know where else sells itself? Minnesota. The new one in Vegas. Those teams don't have to be successful. The owners know it. They don't, if you're not a driven guy, if you're not Robert Kraft, who is driven to take kind of a tough area in New England, in Massachusetts, Buffalo, places that people don't necessarily want to come to, and make it successful, you're working hard. Minnesota does not have to work hard. People are going to come to that stadium. People are going to come to Vegas. People are going to come to Dallas. People are going to come to these new ones in Los Angeles. You don't have to work hard at that. That's the problem. That's it. You don't need to win a Super Bowl to be successful, to sell your product. There's certain ones that don't have to, and they're not making any kind of an effort for it. So just watch the rest of the season and see if it's what I said about how teams, you need to really come up with a hard way to not make the playoffs, and watch the cream separate itself with the talented quarterbacks on the field. And shocker everybody, stunner, that if you can rush for 200 yards in a game, you can actually win a game. Minnesota rushed for over Dalvin Cook rushed himself over 200 yards. They won the game. Stunner. Really. Something that's never changed since the beginning of when football was invented. Before the forward pass, you got to run the football. Where does that start? Offensive line. Not a glamour position, offensive line. Anyhow, that's my rant for today. That's what I'm thinking about today. We'll talk about some stuff next week. Busy weekend for me, so no podcast over the weekend. But I'm going to come back with the college football playoff stuff a little bit. We talk about some of those bowl games coming up, some of the 50 or 60 bowl games coming up. But just watch the NFL this weekend and see how many how much of what I said is noticeable. Not to mention the fact that if you watch an entire NFL game, one more point, if you watch an entire NFL game, it is basically, if there's 70 plays, you're throwing away half of them. I would say half of them. The NFL, the offensive coordinator position is throw away at first down, get a little bit better at second, and make a play on third. That's what the NFL's become offensively. Throw away on first, take a break, take a play off, make a little bit better effort, a little bit better, 10% better effort on second, and then make a play on third. If you don't, you punt, and we'll try it another time. That's how the game is played at the NFL level. You can watch it. I've seen a lot of football, and that's my take on the NFL. All right. Heatmiserable Podcast, episode number 3. We'll see you next time.